So what's more important, suspension or fitness? So back in 2009, I was racing an RM125. I think I got my 250F. I think it was the following year in 2010. But 2009 had an RM125 and we ended up getting some Showa suspension flown over from America. So it was a used set of forks and shock. And I think it had some magic work with factory connection because it had factory connection stickers on it as well. So at that point in time, I was pretty excited. Like, as always, like with ordering stuff, we used to order a fair bit of stuff from America at that point in time because the dollar with Australia was quite strong. It was almost like dollar for dollar. So it's cheaper to get a lot of the stuff from America than it was to actually get it from Australia. So I was really excited to be able to have this suspension turn up, be able to get it in the bike, and be able to get out there and see how it performed, having cool aftermarket suspension. So I remember taking the first ride that I had on it was out at Byford Motocross Track, which is like more of a hard pack track. There was a few tweaks the suspension needed to be set up for maybe my riding ability or the types of tracks that we were riding on compared to maybe what's in the US. But I remember once we did that, it was awesome. Like this RM125 out of all the bikes that I had. So I raced motocross for 14 years. I had like, PW50, KX65, couple of RM125s, RM85s, couple of RM125s, couple of RM250s, RMZ250s as well. And out of all the bikes, this RM125 was by far my favorite. So I'm sure you guys, especially if you've been riding for a bit, you seem to have those bikes that you just gel with and you're like, I really like this bike and I can really ride it to the best of my ability. And so that was the bike for me. So I had the suspension in, loved it, had it all, set up and tweaked for my riding ability and the tracks that we were riding at. But I still remember racing that year. We went to Maffra, which is I'm in Perth in Australia. So that's like 3 or 4 day drive to get to the other side of Australia for the junior nationals. And so I still remember racing there and I just struggled. And the reason that I struggled at that track is I was just cooked. I was tired. I remember getting arm pump, like a ridiculous arm pump, where my arms were just so sore. Even because for the junior nationals, they do like 4 or 5 days of racing in a row. And I just remember each day, even before the races started, my arms were cooked. I remember there was a particular corner at the back of the track. And so it was really it was a hard packed track, but had lots of ruts. And I remember I crashed on the same corner twice in the same race. Right? And purely just because I was tired. I was just exhausted getting through the races. The races were a little bit longer than what we do over here in Perth. That might have been it. There's obviously a higher intensity, so probably riding a bit harder, riding at a track that's not, that I'm not 100% familiar with. But it was a combination of things. But at the end of the day, the thing that caused me to not perform at my best was just being fatigued, being tired on the bike. And so it's not until years later, like a lot of these problems, a lot of things I talk about on YouTube or even on Facebook as well, they're not things that I noticed in the moment. They're things that I noticed when I actually stopped racing and went and did other things in life, went into coaching, went into doing fitness competitions. And I'll look back and I'm like, you know what? Like there's this stuff that I've learned in doing the fitness competitions that I've learned in coaching that I now look back on my own racing. I'm like, shit, like that's where I went wrong. Like I can see it clearly now, but I couldn't see it clearly at the time. And so it wouldn't have mattered for me if I'd had like aftermarket suspension or I'd had like factory Showa stuff that only the factory guys would be able to get hold of and had 30, 40, 50 grand worth of suspension in the bike. It really wouldn't have mattered for me because the thing that was holding me back was the fitness side. It was the fatigue. It was the tiredness. It was the not being able to push. It was my legs getting sore. It was not being able to hang on. It was the getting out of breath. It was the running out of energy at the end of the day. It was the getting towards the end of the motos and not being able to push and making stupid mistakes like crashing twice on the same corner. And they're all things that, so for me, most of my riding and racing years, I was an A grade rider. So an A grade rider shouldn't be crashing twice on the same corner. Okay, like the skills can always be improved, but the skills weren't my limiting factor. They weren't the thing holding me back from getting the results that I was capable of. The thing that was holding me back from getting the results that I was capable of was having the endurance, having the stamina there to be able to push for a full race. And so that doesn't mean that suspension and bike setup isn't important because those things are important. Bike skills and skill development is also important. But I needed to, at that point in time, the fitness was the thing that held me back. And so now when I look at other riders, I can see clearly the thing that they need to work on, because really there's only 3 areas that you need to work on to improve as a rider racer. You either need to get fitter and have the endurance to go hard for a full race. You need to have your bike set up properly so you can actually ride it hard. And you need to have the skills to be able to ride it hard for a full race, okay? Now, out of those 3 things, they're the 3 levers that you can turn to be able to improve your riding and racing. But first of all, you need to find out which is the limiting factor, which is the thing that's actually holding the rider back. And so for some of you, it might be bike setup, and you need to go and spend a whole heap of money on your suspension and get it dialed. And maybe that's the limiting factor. Maybe it's the skills that are the limiting factor. But for me, the limiting factor was the fitness and the endurance side. And I see for a lot of other guys as well, they make the same mistake I made, which is over-capitalizing on the bike. Putting all the time, the effort, the money, the energy into getting the bike going. If you followed some of my other videos, you'll see, like, you know, we had the motor sent over to Pro Circuit. I had the Showa suspension. We had like an aftermarket. I think it was a Pro Circuit linkage on one of the bikes. Always had new gear most years. Had new bikes, I'd say every couple of years. Like, had more goggles than you can poke a stick at. More sets of gear than you can poke a stick at. Right? Multiple different helmets, right? In excess of what I actually needed. And so there's nothing wrong with having those things. And I enjoyed having those things and having new gear and all of that sort of stuff. And, you know, enjoyed the whole getting new bikes, getting new gear, getting new graphics and all that. But in terms of getting better for me, that's not the thing that I needed. The thing that I needed is just a fraction of the focus on getting myself ready and making sure that I was doing the right stuff so that I could be ready to race. So my question for you is, what is the thing that you need to work on? Is your fitness the limiting factor and you can't ride a full race at race speed, and that's the thing that needs to be worked on? Do you need your bike set up to be improved, or do you need to work on your skills? And once you can answer that question for yourself honestly, then you know what you need to work on. Then you've got these coming months to be able to get to work. And especially now coming into the end of the year where it's off season, that's the best opportunity that you've got to put some work in with your training. Because during race season, you can build race fitness and you can build strength and build your endurance, but it's a lot harder because you're trying to factor in spending time on the bike, getting the bikes ready during the week, traveling to the races. This next 4 months plus block that you have at the end of the season going to next year is the best opportunity that you have to be able to improve your performance or improve your fitness, because you've got a lot of uninterrupted time there where you might not be doing as much riding, you're not going to be traveling as much, there's not as much bike prep involved, so you can really knuckle down on your training and getting your body ready going into next year. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover today in this video. As always, if you'd like some help, find me on Instagram or find me on Facebook, send me a private message with the word race fit, and I can send you some details. Otherwise, hopefully you found this video helpful. Chat soon. See ya.